My sense is that some of the cuts that have been announced have not been as advertised. The impact has not been as advertised. And I think also there has been, which he points out, a number of difficulties in terms of creating new programs which have short-term funding, not long-term funding. My hope would be that as we go forward together, we're going to be looking at those kind of issues that have come in the past. And I hope Richard Sheridan is available to us because, very frankly, he was one of those few people who got his arms around the whole state budget and did so in a very creative way. You can find that on the web. I don't know what that means, but...
We're already operating under a budget that is tight and lean, and the fact is that we're already seeing the governor having to propose cuts because of the revenue situation in Ohio. I believe the governor's done a very good job in conjunction with both the House and the Senate, which were both led by Republicans over the last 2 years and longer. Together, the House, Senate, and governor have made cuts which, while painful to people in the state, were needed and were carefully crafted, I believe, to minimize the pain. So, for example, when we recently had to close a mental health facility in Marietta, I believe, it was done with the idea that at least those services would be available in surrounding areas, although people would have to travel further and make it less convenient and less easy for people to get the services they need. So up to this point, I believe that the cuts that have been made in an intelligent fashion. But to continue cutting is going to be very painful for the people of Ohio.
Hi. The governor created a task force to look at 21st century transportation needs and yet turned down the funding mechanism, a gas tax, as a way of addressing them. I wonder what your views are on a gas tax as a way of addressing, encouraging people for riding bikes, walking, and taking public transportation, and rebuilding some of the transportation priorities that we're talking about, as well as perhaps addressing your budget for shortfall.
My personal opinion is that we are in a bad situation to try to expand gas taxes. Ohio is very fortunate. We're within 900 miles of about 75%, 70%, something like that, of factories and so forth. It seems to me that, therefore, we don't do anything that's going to slow up trucking, rail, and that kind of thing. If the U.S. government wants to do something to be helpful as opposed to giving money to people who then go out and buy banks in other people's communities, if we want to do something like that, then it seems to me that what we ought to be doing is putting money into those projects for construction. They're already planned. They're done. They're completed, except for letting the bids and starting the work. That would be helpful. But I don't think a gas tax increase would be.
A gas tax increase at this point, I think, would be very difficult for the state. I do think that there are things we can do in the area of transportation. I was in the legislature less than 2 months when the transportation budget came before the Finance Committee last budget, and the governor came in with what I thought was a very reasonable proposal. That proposal was to take another fresh look at the priorities currently on the table for the transportation budget. And he wanted to take that fresh look, adding one criterion that had not been considered before, and that was economic development. What impact would a transportation project have on economic development in a particular region? And to my surprise, the legislature rejected that proposal. I think that there are things we can do in enhancing the use of the current transportation dollars that we have now.
Let me just supplement that by saying that the unfortunate part of a lot of these programs is that people have a dog in the fight in the legislature, and if they already had a criteria that gave them a project, they didn't exactly want to go back and review it. And I think the governor was right.
Mr. Batchelder, I've been hearing figure of $8 billion deficit. Turns out that the tax breaks that usually aren't discussed in the legislature, I understand, are about $7-8 billion in this current budget. So one possibility, not likely, would be to eliminate these tax breaks and the budget's balanced, just like that. I wonder if you'd comment on how carefully scrutinized the tax breaks are that are in the budget now.
I was unaware we were doing such a good job giving tax breaks. I'd have to say that. I'm not knowledgeable about that, very frankly. We have tax inducements for creation of business and industry. There have not been proposals to do away with those. We have been decreasing the income tax with the hope of bringing entrepreneurial industry to the state of Ohio. I have not heard anybody who wants to go back up to the old income tax rate. I'm not sure what's all involved in that, but at this point in time, I don't think there's much focus on that. To the extent that there are inducements which are not fruitful, definitely they should all be reviewed. And I think without question, I know the Speaker and I have discussed the necessity to look at everything from the ground up. What I think he used to call that zero budget something or other. And so I think it's important for us to look at those things.
That question was to Bill, so I'll let him answer.
That won't always happen.
Yeah, let me get more specific. It has been said in the past by a lot of people that, especially in northeastern Ohio, there are too many municipalities. Now, you tiptoed around this well when you said they're combining various things. What about actually getting rid of municipalities, pushing something on the state level to get rid of them? That is one of the big things on our taxes. Secondly, there was a organization, the Milken Institute, that I believe has a great deal of credibility. They did a national survey on all of the states, what was good, bad, or indifferent. And one of the things that was singled out with the state of Ohio was the treatment of utilities. Anybody attempting to come into the state is going to be discouraged a little bit because they don't know what the utility rates are going to be. This is in black and white. It's not my opinion. Could you address that?
The utility issue is one that we had right on the front burner during this last session, Senate Bill 221, and the House spent a really large amount of time. I was honored the Speaker appointed me to the committee. I guess he thought it was insoluble, so I might as well get in there and obfuscate the thing. But as a practical matter, that is a problem. We had a transitional situation for utility regulation from a fixed rate-setting process to an anti-monopoly process where there could be competition among electric companies. They could buy power from other places and so forth. Now, the biggest single problem we face is pollution abatement in the utility area, because many of the generating facilities that generate for Ohio are coal-fired. But as a practical matter, we have given the industries now the option of selecting how they are going to operate, and the PUCO has, to this point, been sort of a brick wall as to how that's going to work out. You're absolutely right. We have a situation here where we need to have new efforts toward providing utilities, and they are very crucial. I remember talking to Tim Timken one day, and they had spent $78 million on electricity at his Canton plant. I don't think people understand how big a consumer industry is in this state. So if we don't have a program that's predictable, predictability being the basic thing in economics for people to locate plants and so forth,